we got some lipids. Okay, so for starters, my cells are composed of dietary triglycerides, dietary/biliary cholesterol, plant sterols, and bile acids. It's important to note that these are digested lipids, so it is amphipathic, meaning it can dissolve well in both hydrophilic and hydrophobic solution. This allows it to travel a lot more through the body, allowing it to also enter enterocytes or intestinal cells in the small intestines. Through that method, you will also see an increase in triglycerides here from fatty acids entering the enterocyte. I'll do the pointer finger method, as well as most importantly an ApoB48 protein, which gets added to the micelle, forming a chylomicron. So that is a chylomicron now, and it exits into the lymphatics, through which it will travel all the way through the lymph system into the thoracic cavity, into the bloodstream now. You can see that it's composed of mostly triglycerides, then as well as phospholipids, cholesterol esterase, and it's still got that B48 receptor. Then, as it travels through the blood, it will pick up more proteins such as E and C2. There is a key over here that I will now refer to. Some important proteins for this specific guy are ApoC2, which gives triglycerides to muscle and adipose tissue. More on that later. And ApoE, which allows for receptor-mediated endocytosis, which again, we will get onto that later, and that only occurs in the liver. So with this new ApoC2 protein, it can now interact with LPL, or lipoprotein lipase, in the endothelial cells of muscle and adipose tissue. This transfers many triglycerides into them. Muscle will use that as immediate energy, while adipose tissue will store it. Then it will continue to travel through the blood. It should be noted that a significant amount of triglycerides will leave the chylomicron here, resulting in it becoming a new thing, a chylomicron remnant. From there, it will travel through the blood all the way to... Sorry, some stupid notification. I cannot go fishing in an hour. I don't live in Lowell anymore. I know. Anyway, it becomes a chylomicron remnant, which then will travel its way over to the liver, and its ApoE protein will bind with its appropriate receptor, engaging in receptor-mediated endocytosis. This is the whole dietary pathway for distribution of specifically triglycerides. Now we're moving on to the more synthetic pathway for triglycerides as well as cholesterol. It involves the hepatocyte, which synthesizes something called a nascent VLDL. It's composed of a ApoB100 protein, C1 and E, as well as many other receptors I didn't bother to put up there. It should be noted again that it has mostly triglycerides, but then it also has cholesterol esterase, and phospholipid. Now we're going to refer to this little key again. We have ApoB100. This engages in, it's a downstream protein, so it gives cholesterol to peripheral cells and tissues, which is needed to synthesize things like hormones. Cell membranes is another big one. I know it has other purposes. So this exits the hepatocyte via exocytosis into the bloodstream, where it picks up more ApoC and ApoE. You can see that here, that little addition that I added. Then it will make its way again to the muscle and the adipose tissue, where it binds to lipoprotein lipase, and I should also add that it becomes a VLDL after getting more ApoC and ApoE. Anyway, the VLDL will give its a good majority of its triglycerides to the endothelial cells in the muscle and adipose for the same reason, and it becomes depleted. Similarly to the chylomicron, it now becomes a VLDL remnant, also known as IDL. It has less triglycerides, and it can go through one of two pathways. It can, with its ApoE protein, bind to the appropriate receptor in the liver or hepatocyte, and it will then be fully endocytosed into the liver, or it can bind to hepatic lipase, which doesn't need any of these apoproteins, and it will transfer a good majority of its triglycerides over to the liver. And once it goes down this pathway, it will lose its ApoE. HDL will take that. We'll get into what that is in a second. And now it becomes known as LDL, or low density lipoprotein. It has one purpose with its B100 receptor. It will bind to its appropriate, ApoB100 will bind to its appropriate receptor on the tissue cell, being fully endocytosed, meaning this whole protein with its triglycerides, cholesterol esterase, and phospholipids will enter the periphery, and this is how your whole body receives cholesterol as a whole. So this can be a good mechanism. It's essential, you need it, but done in excess, you'll see it go to places where it really shouldn't be. You might see it stored under the skin. You might see these yellow deposits, and the biggest issue is when it gets deposited in excess in the endothelium of your blood vessels, which can lead to a plaque forming and then an atheroma called atherosclerosis. It narrows your blood vessels. Boom, there's your heart attack. Boom, there's your stroke. So here you have the final pathway. We need a way to kind of work against this. You can't just have your body sending cholesterol downstream without some way to mediate that. And look no further, we have HDL, which is high density lipoprotein, the hero, the knight in shining armor. It comes from either the intestine or the liver. It starts out as just a humble protein with phospholipid, cholesterol, and a little A1, ApoA1 attached to it. Now this is the final thing on the key. This transfers cholesterol to high density lipoprotein from the periphery. So it acts kind of directly against, where is it? ApoB100. It's taking cholesterol from the periphery. But it's not taking essential cholesterol, it's just extra cholesterol that builds up there. It's saying, hey, we'll take your junk, you don't need it. Anyway, lipoproteins, especially LDL, will give ApoC, ApoE, ApoC, and cholesterol in the plasma to this HDL. And you can see that it adds a bunch more of apoproteins attached to it. So I should also note that it starts as nascent HDL. You can notice a pattern. It starts as nascent, then it becomes HDL. And this won't actually become a remnant, but the others do. Anyway, this will then go to the periphery. This does this multiple times in one setting. It doesn't just do one cell. It'll go from cell to cell until it has reached its max, and it will, via A1, find its appropriate receptor, bind, which then releases cholesterol into HDL via the ABCA1 channel. You should also note that things like chylomicrons and VLDL will transfer their triglycerides, cholesterol, and phospholipids to HDL. It's kind of like the janitor of the body. Okay. HDL will then make its final route back to the liver through the blood, and three things will occur. It doesn't necessarily have to be all three. It can be any combination. Again, you can see hepatic lipase here will bind to the HDL, and it will transfer all the triglycerides over, or a good amount of them over, into the liver for resynthesis or whatever. You can also see that here, what even is that binding, man? I don't think, I have no clue. I don't think anything really binds here, but it's the scavenger receptor B1, which takes all the cholesterol from HDL. I'm sure it binds to something, it's just not listed. And then finally, the ApoE, which we all know what that does at this point. It binds to its appropriate receptor on the liver, and then allows for endocytosis of your HDL. And this doesn't necessarily have to happen. It can go back and do its rounds. It's entirely determined by something I don't know. That is the all.
Oh, shit.
What? Hang on, just getting one final. Oh.